Yeah, g'day TryPod family. It's Clarky here. Welcome back to the TryPod Live with Winnie and Clarky. We're with you to recap everything round 25 and all of our best bets. Before we get into all of that and more, got to know, how are you going, Winnie? You all right?
Not that great, to be honest, man, because it was a pretty poor round of tipping. 1 and 4 best of my best bets. At least the Matildas got a goal just in time for our special mix matchup. We did win that. Same gamer was actually a really good shot at about $6 odds, but didn't win. Although same gamers this year have been outstanding, even if I do say so myself. But our best bet record right now, 41 and 40. And seriously, like I watch every minute of every game. I put so much time in my preparation. I look around everywhere to try and find my most confident bets. Done it for a long time. You could flip a coin and be 41 and 40. Like, let's tell it how it is. So that's just not good enough for me. I'll call out players or teams when they're not good enough. It's been a real struggle. And I'll, continue to endeavour to finish this year strong and try and find plays that I believe are going to win more often than not. But I put my hands up and say it hasn't been good enough so far this year.
It has been a weird old year, hasn't it? And to be fair, for our listeners that are with us live, we can see Colt's there. G'day, mate. And to everyone listening as a podcast later, later to this, a 9-year tracked winning record isn't something that you come across every single day here. So do you put it down to anything in particular this year before we jump into our round recap?
I always appreciate that, but I don't want to ever kind of lean back on the last 9 years like other people can. But if you're going to lean back on historically what we've done on the pod, it's like, how long can you be mediocre or bad for and keep saying, oh yeah, but long term. Like, you want to be delivering each and every week for the people who tune in, certainly each and every season. So look, if I kind of knew where I was going wrong, I'd fix it. But we can talk game by game where we went wrong here, because I don't even feel like too many of my best bets got that close.
Yeah, it was a tough one. I think I only got one of my picks right, and I think that was the Roosters game. Let's jump into Thursday night. That was the Sharks v Cowboys. That was up in Townsville. Sharkies walk away 32 to 12-point winners. Went with Connor Tracy for my MVP, which is a really great game by him when you consider that I thought they might have been missing something with Will Kennedy gone. Up steps Tracy, little did we know, 250 meters, try assist. All things said, though, I am really shocked at the Cowboys here. I really was. I'm never too shocked because I do appreciate how unpredictable football is. But I just think when you're looking for sides that require a mental edge, we've got the Cowboys at home. We've got them fresh off a bye where they've won their other 2 games coming off them this year. We've got their co-captain, Jason Tamalolo's 250th. And we've got them against a Sharks side who, whilst they were riding a 2-game win streak, they were still 2-5 in their 2-3, in their recent 5. The Cowboys just didn't fire a shot. That is 3 weeks in a row the Sharks have really played their opponents out of the game. So now I do have to really reassess how I was viewing the Sharks prior and give them that respect. That's 3 wins in a row there. And my read on them coming into this was probably wrong. They rise in my rankings, whereas for the Cowboys, they couldn't fall lower. It's season over. It's a disappointing season where at one stage you could have told me there's no chance they're making the finals. I'd agree. And another, when they went on their run, I thought there was no way they were missing the finals. My official play or pick here was Cowboys minus 4.5 at the line. So no return there. I don't know, Winnie. There's not much words to explain this one. It was a weird game, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was stunned. So the best bet was Cowboys minus 4. When you say they didn't fire a shot, like they started okay. They led the game 12-6. I'm thinking we're in the game here. We knew the importance, all the reasons you said off the bye, and I'll get to whether their season is over, but whether or not mathematical, whether or not they make the 8 and whether they can threaten for the comp are 2 different things as well. But from 12-6 up, you're right. Then it's Cronulla, 26 unanswered points. And for all those reasons, the Taumalolo milestone, the fact that you had to pretty much win to keep yourself in the top 8, you are playing off a bye. You've gotten a couple of key players back in. There's no urgency whatsoever. You're in front of your home fans. I was stunned. And the Sharkies, I mean, you shouted out Tracy there, but I thought you got to give it up for Nico as well, was really in command in this one. It means that the Sharkies are well and truly, entrenched in the top 8. As for the Cowboys, the way it stands, I'm going to say that, so there's I think after the Raiders won today, I think there's 3 teams fighting for one spot. Is it fair to say the Cowboys, the Roosters, and the Rabbitohs are fighting for one spot? Because Newcastle won today, they're going to get in. The Raiders won, the Sharks won, right? So to me, it's 3 teams wanting one spot. Who controls the destiny? The Penrith Panthers, I think. Because if the Cowboys win their final 2 games, and the Cowboys do host the Finns next week, if the Cowboys then beat Penrith, they'll actually make the finals. They've got the best points difference of those 3 sides. But they don't decide whether they beat Penrith. Only Penrith decides. If Penrith wants to win that, I think we can say Penrith at home will win. So that's why I say Penrith will decide who makes the finals. So it depends how you look at it, because Penrith might rest up and the Cowboys will actually still make the finals. However, if you assume that the Cowboys on current form have got no hope in round 27, then it's going to come down to Rabbitohs, Roosters. How crazy is that? But yeah, as for this game, look, I cop it loss on the chin because I never saw that result coming. So if I'm going to have a bet on it, I don't deserve to win it.
And the interesting thing for the Sharks is I think their biggest strength and their weakness is their forward pack. When their forward pack gets rolling like they did in this game, their spine players just take over. Braley was brilliant, Trindle was brilliant, Hines, and we already spoke about Tracy. But when the Sharks forward pack doesn't get it going, their spine suddenly looks lost. And we've already seen Moylan be the fallout man of that, where they've said, well, something's not working, Moylan, you can go. And so Trindle's coming in, he's looking good so far, but their forwards are winning these battles. And I do think, although it's a big strength for them at the moment, based on what I saw early in this year, it is their biggest weakness. If you can hold that forward pack, the rest of their spine really does freeze up. We've got Ryan in the house, we've got Harry in the house, and I did see Harry said he warned us about the Sharks, and I can say that I did see that comment.
Harry also said he hates first half bets. It doesn't really matter when you would have lost full game anyway, like I would with Souths. And I should tidy up what I just said there. The Cowboys don't control the destiny, even if they win in Penrith, because Souths has a better points differential. So if Souths win the final game of the season against the Roosters, they'll make the finals because they do get the bye this week as well. However, if the Roosters beat Souths, it will be either the Roosters or the Cowboys in the finals. Souths will miss out. I'm assuming the Roosters will beat West and the Cowboys most likely beat the Finns next week. Then it will come down to what Penrith wants to do. So either way, it's pretty exciting that these sides like Cowboys, Roosters, Bunnies coming into the year were all seen as contenders. Really looks like only one of those 3 can even play finals footy.
And don't mind me frowning while you were talking there. Sorry, I was in my own world. I just saw something I couldn't believe. A bookie here has odds for the Warriors to win at $13 and the Cowboys as well at $13. That's unbelievable because the Warriors are guaranteed top 4 at this stage. How could you possibly have them the same value? That is strange. Really strange.
Do you want to shame the bookie? That's just
I'm
wrong.
on the NRL website and a sponsor of the NRL. So
yellow and blue.
Yes,
that's definitely not the right odds. Don't take 13 about the Cowboys.
No, take 151 or higher. Let's jump into Friday night. It was Warriors v Manly over there in New Zealand. Warriors got up 29-22. Went with Tohu Harris for my MVP. Had a try, 36 tackles, standard Tohu Harris performance. And my play here was Warriors 13+, which unfortunately I did miss as well. But I don't think you could say they were too poor. I didn't really look at anything. I've got that graphic around the wrong way. My apologies to our live viewers. I didn't really look at anything the Warriors didn't go, well, that was poor, or that was really crap tonight. I just thought Manly were a game side that had nothing to lose. They came, they brought it like they did the week before with Penrith. The Warriors are still an interesting side, though. I have had them much higher in my premiership favoured list, and realistically now, it's 3 weeks in a row where they probably should have covered the line, but they didn't. There's this single fly in the room right now, flies around and absolutely annoys me. But they do have the Dragons next week at home. Okay. Doesn't get harder there. Dolphins in the final round. Not really a challenge for this Warriors side either. Now, they're not covering Lions, but they are winning. And so I do wonder, Winnie, if you had to say right now, do you think it's going to be a benefit for the Warriors that they're going to cruise into finals? Or would you like to see them tested and have to play at least a top 8 side during their run home? Your thoughts on that and your thoughts on the game as well, please.
I know they always say you want the tough matches before the finals, but I think you just want to avoid injury and suspensions most importantly, and spend as little petrol as you can. And the Warriors should be in a good position to do that. Even if they can't get to second, they should be, pretty safe in third there. I think they've still got that buffer over the Storm, who are fourth. So they're in a strong position. You're right about not covering lines going back to ever since they've had the bye. And I think ever since that game where they pumped Cronulla at home and everyone was like, oh, don't bet against the Warriors. If you bet against them, you pretty much would have won every week, apart from maybe the Titans game. That 10-point win just covers the line by half a point. We were on it. And again, they needed an opposing player sent off 20 minutes in. So all those people that have been at me all year, God, you got to back the Warriors. Yes, they won this. They didn't cover the line. And I was on them 13 plus, and they only won by 7. What hurts even more is my same game multi. I went this game and I went DWZ for 2 or more tries, just like I did with Mulatalo a week ago. I claimed in the group that I've never got it wrong when I've picked a player for multiple tries in a multi. Well, Watene Zalesniak has his second try after 16 minutes. That was 3 straight by the Warriors in 10 minutes after Manly actually scored the opener. So it was 16-6 and you're scoring a point a minute. So we had that leg and we just needed the Warriors to score 36 or more. But as I'm saying, they've scored a point a minute after 17 and they're up 10. You could very easily see Manly capitulate, or at least not be able to play tough for the remaining kind of 60 minutes. Like, yeah, they might throw the footy around, and they did. And as you said, playing like a side with nothing to lose, similar to the game plan that they did invoke against Penrith. But to Manly's credit, I mean, Saab has the next 3 tries in the game after that point, so they didn't give in. They actually threw plenty more at the Warriors to take a 6-point lead into the break, and then it was an arm wrestle. The majority of the second half was 22-all, so there's that controversy there after a DCE charge down, the field goal attempt is charged down. It bounces up in the air. Garrick takes it and then has his legs taken out, but it's no penalty because the ball had bounced. So you can't be penalized for tackling a player in the air if it's not off a kick that's into the air. And of course, no play there. I think Garrick spills the ball, man. New Zealand goes the other way. Ultimately, Niukore scores a try. And even though our graphic is wrong, I've tidied that up in the comments there. Warriors win 29-22 with SJ slotting a late field goal. So the game being so tight second half meant we missed the same gamer, which would have been really nice by 7 points there. But what did you think of the controversy? I will say, based on the rules, it was no penalty. So you'd have to, be kind of making a judgment outside the rules and saying it was just a dangerous tackle. Should that have been the call?
You'd need to deem that it was careless or reckless. Reckless being the more dangerous, reckless. There's an element of intent there. I think you could argue careless. The defender's best interests weren't considered in that. But it was one of those weird ones, right? Where like the Jordan Rapinoe one, where the blood was coming from his head early this year. By the rule book, not really a penalty. But because there's blood and because it looks so bad, we give a penalty. Well, this one did look bad as well. Garrick was evidently hurt. He left the game. No penalty. I am comfortable it's the right decision. But I think no matter which way you give that call, either side is going to feel unlucky. For what it's worth, I remember a few years ago, it happened with the Broncos game. They put up a weird old bomb. It bounced once, and Tommy Turbo jumped up. And as he was in the air from jumping, a Broncos player tackled him, and no penalty was awarded. And Turbo ended up getting seriously injured. I think it was a hamstring or a knee. And the Broncos social media dude at the time put that up as the highlight of the week. Look at this big shot on Tommy. And all the comments were saying, this is so poor. Like, dude, someone that got injured. And that's why I remember it, I suppose. But yeah, Seabold seemed to think he was going to get a call from the NRL. Graham Annesley came out today and said it was nothing more than an accident and the contact was not careless. So the NRL at least are saying that they've made the right call there. Roosters v Eels. Roosters get up 34-12. I went with Teddy for my MVP here. 2 tries, 11 tackle breaks. Just that classic Teddy performance, I suppose, where he's around everything. And when he's around everything, everyone around him starts to become more dangerous, as there's that extra option you've really got to keep your eye on. My play, I believe our play on this was Roosters minus 4.5 of the line. We were both on that one. And that one does cash, thankfully. If this game kind of went to script, I think from our preview, we were kind of saying the Roosters probably just have a little bit more in the gas tank, riding a little bit more of a wave, whereas the Eels have kind of realizing their season's kind of petered out in front of them. And that's pretty much what we saw in this one. The Roosters are definitely at their highest point of the season. There is a chance they go on to play finals. I do agree with you. Looking at the live ladder, I think their issue is, or could be, that points differential. They're on negative 62, whereas the Cowboys are on 12 and the Bunnies 73. So
they control their destiny to catch Souths, right?
Because they will play
them. Yes, yep. And they play West next week. Teddy will be out because he got a Category 1 concussion, but you'd still think they'll be able to handle West Tigers with their season on the line. So that's pretty awesome. We got, what we wanted there out of that final game. It's gonna mean Roosters' season, but it doesn't guarantee them playing finals, as we just said, because the Cowboys do have the upper hand on points differential over the Roosters. However, the Cowboys have this mystery Panthers game, which could be awesome for them or could be a death sentence. So we don't know. But in this game, where Hargraves was ruled out prior to the game, so that didn't go according to script. After losing a couple of best bets in a row, I needed to get back on track here. I think some bookies did have it 4.5, but best bet I got Wednesday night was 3.5. In any case, win by 22 points. And another interesting factor was Roosters going with Hutchison after such a strong show in round 24, when they say that Walker's now good to go, and Walker's played well in reserve grade. So, when it's all on the line and they play Souths, who they're going to pick there, that will be fascinating. But everyone was just up and about for the Roosters. They look alive again, and that's defensively as well, with some try-saving tackles showing that desperation. And for Parra, I just felt like even when their forwards were ripping in, it's awesome when you got Junior Bolo and you got RCG back. You can really get on the front foot, but they missed Moses' kicking game off the back of that a lot. And no surprise that they missed Mitchell Moses. That's the end of Parramatta's season, and Roosters well and truly alive with 3 on the trot.
Yeah, Roosters win streak. They could make it 4 next week against the Tigers, very likely. I love this comment by William who got up. Hard year on the punt. Most years in tipping, you feel you have to pick 2 upsets a week. And if you cast your mind back to our preview shows earlier this year, remember when I was always trying to pick that upset, saying every week there's going to be one. As the season continued, William's right. It wasn't you need to necessarily pick 3 or 4 upsets head-to-head, but certainly at the line. The lines this year have been really difficult to pick. And this next game was no exception. It was Tigers v Dolphins, and the Tigers won 24-23. My MVP was Api Coruscant. It just had to be with that sideline kick and 33 tackles. Didn't have an official play here or a pick. I thought both sides, respectfully, I think both sides lack quality and class this year. But they do make up for that with a lot of effort. These are 2 teams that do try their hard out most weeks here. So because we've got 2 sides that lack that quality, but they're going to give it 100%, I wasn't sure what to expect here. What we got was probably both sides close to their best, given the circumstances. And I did think towards the end that Dolphins have probably done enough to win this. But to the Tigers' credit, they stay in the fight. They try every week. And finally, they get their due rewards. Where it gets interesting, this was kind of Benji's first official game taking over, and it was against his mentor and close friend in Wayne Bennett. But I know you had a tip on the Tigers here, and this is not the first time this year where you've gone with a best bet, and then before kickoff we get news. In this instance, it was Brooks and Toa ruled out after the bet was placed, so I know that had to hurt.
Yeah, it does. When this would have been Brooks' farewell home game as well, and they've played good footy since he's come back from that hammy injury. So, but is he worth 8 points? It's probably not really fair to say that, or to say that that's why the bet lost. But it's not a great thing to miss a key outside back and your halfback. It was strange, Sheens, because the news was out that, of course, Sheens was originally going to do 2 years and Benji was going to do the apprenticeship. And then the news has come in the last week or two. No, it's only going to be 1. And I can understand, however much Benji's learned, it's diminishing returns, staying under Sheens another year. Benji's much more in tune, I guess, with the modern players, and I could understand taking the reins, but then it was very abrupt, where suddenly Sheens is out altogether. So I don't know how that disruption affected the team, because they played all right. In fact, you probably can't take too much away from West's performance. It was just a back and forth game. It was pretty wild. I did think we were still a good chance, even though we've got a bad line with those player outs. We were a good chance of covering -9.5. I mean, West scored back-to-back tries. The second and I think the final try that West scored was Simpkin, who's actually a really skilled dummy half, which made the option make sense to play Coruscant at 7 and to just allow Simpkin to play the full game. When West got up 8, and mind you, they should have led by 10, but Coruscant missed a kick from in front. A couple of players missed kicks from in front today, this round. Of course, we had money on them. But if you lead by 8, you could kind of carry on with it. However, the Dolphins just don't know when they're beaten. And one player I want to shout out, and I didn't say anything about him on Wednesday because it was only in the reserves, but Trey Fuller came into the team on the bench, and then they actually brought him on to play fullback and switched Nakarima to hooker. And this guy, like, I watch a little bit of Queensland Cup, and he's always the Dolphins' best player. He really stands out at Queensland Cup level. And I've watched before and thought, how has nobody given this guy an opportunity in the NRL? So for him to get a debut, comes on, actually scores a try that pulls the scores within 2. Later on, Dolphins get a penalty, level up. Izarko's field goal puts them in front. 23-22 was the same lead the Dolphins had over the Dogs, I want to say, just a couple of weeks ago. And then Appy with the great short kickoff that results in a penalty, and the sideline shot for the win. And it's so far out and so wide that you maybe just tap and go for it. Not every team would have even had the shot, but they went for the all or nothing, and he curls it online. The last moment it curls in, but it hits the bar. Thankfully for West, they snap. It was a double-digit losing streak. A lost count of how many they lost, but it dropped on the in-goal side of the post, and West did hang on to win by 1, which does no favours for the best bet. But as I said, I thought that West would win this a bit more comfortably. So my Finns, again, with so many of their key men out, fought and surprised people with how competitive they were still able to play.
And I know hindsight really helps, particularly when we're talking footy tipping. I was really close on our preview pod to going back to the Maroons in 2020 with Wayne Bennett and saying, like, this is a dude that knows how to win with quote-unquote nobodies, or not a consistent regular side that you'd expect it. In that instance, the rep level. In this instance, the NRL level. And to his credit, I mean, he just finds a way to get people up and get his team in the game. You mentioned they don't know how to give up. They also might not know how to win. That penalty was really, really silly when you're ahead by 1. I think it was a double effort. Yep. Just no need for it. Really, really silly stuff. But they'll continue to learn, and they'll be a better side next year, in my opinion. Panthers beat my Titans. This was the next game. It was 40-14 there. They come to the Gold Coast and pump us. Went with Dylan Edwards from MVP. 2 tries, 297 meters. Great game by him. Didn't have an official play on this one. I did say in the preview show, in all honesty, the Panthers should cover this line and probably will. But there's always that small chance that the Titans show up. And when they do show up, they actually are somewhat of a decent football side. We've seen in the Warriors game, the Broncos game. There are games this year where they've really shown up and give it a good crack. I will say that was the case here for Stages in this one against the Panthers, and probably a lesser side. The Titans might have won, even with the adversity they had to overcome here, but the Panthers are just too classy. I thought, and this could be my bias, but I thought the hip drop tackle, from James Fisher-Harris, I thought they were sin bins. I thought we'd kind of established in the NRL, if you commit a hip drop, you go to the sin bin. And I thought Thomas Jenkins, their winger who replaced Toppy, I thought he was clearly marking Lofi off the ball there in an offside position. So I thought they were close sin bins. Didn't go our way. We then lose Philip Sammy and Jaden Campbell during the game, 2 of our best. And I just believe to beat the Panthers in the NRL, you need to be at least a 9.5 out of 10. We were already below that possibility due to our current injury list and form. So, we probably come into the game 7 out of 10, you'd say. Then we lose key players during the game. So all things considered, although we were pumped by that score that you can see there, I'm not too disappointed. We tried hard and we were simply outclassed by a much better football side. Did you see it that way as well?
You weren't even that far away. I mean, when the Titans came out second half with back-to-back tries, didn't convert either of them, but cut the score to 22-14. And I was looking at the live odds. The live line was all the way down 10 points. And the Titans carried on with it. The Titans were knocking on the door to score again. Like, the Titans were camped on the Panthers line, repeat set after repeat set. And if you were brave and you took the 20-point line, 21, 22, right? They're only down 8. So you're figuring it's still going to take more than 2 converted tries to beat me here. The Titans look like they could score again, and there wasn't that much time left. But you've got to say Penrith, the game meant a lot to them. They really aimed up defensively. They didn't give the Titans anything easy. They really wanted to work hard on their line and not let the Titans get any closer, absorbing that pressure like only they can, and then ultimately blowing it away late. And I thought a guy like Edwards was fantastic. And I just want to just throw a side note out there. I wonder what our followers will think and how you would respond to this, Clarkey. So I understand he has signed long-term with the Panthers. That wasn't just rumoured. He has actually signed on the dotted line that he's going to be there for the next Dylan Edwards.
I'll double check. You keep going.
The
I'll double check that in the background.
I heard $850 a season and maybe like 5 years. I know they're trying to lock in Luai and Edwards, but Luai's changed management, so that might be a slower process. In any case, it sounds like Edwards is going to stay, right? Other people have said, look, Edwards would be worth $1 million on the open market. And that actually got me thinking. And I'll see what information you've got there, Clarkey. I'll throw it to others now too. But if Edwards just said, no, I'm not accepting your offer, Penrith, and he's not that kind of guy, but I'm just throwing this out there just out of interest. If he said, no, I want to make $1 million a season, how many teams in the NRL would actually offer that? Because you'd think he's one of the best, like 3, if not definitely best 5 fullbacks in the game, and it's such a valuable position. But you tell me who would actually be in a position to pay Edwards $1 million a season, because you're not actually going to find that many candidates.
No, you know what? I've got here from News Corp 3 weeks ago, reported 4 or 5 years and at 950,000 per year. So close to that million mark, but definitely think he could still push ahead. Really, you've got to go through each team and who needs a fullback. You could say the Raiders do. The Bulldogs certainly.
The Raiders came to mind. If he was on the open market, I think the Raiders would offer $1 million. The Bulldogs, though, they've already signed Crichton. But you think if they could get Edwards, they're just the Panthers juniors. They're just basically use the Panthers as a feeder team, so they'd slot them both in.
At this point, absolutely they are. Looking around, no one else really. You could say the Dragons and Dolphins. I think Dolphins kind of have to take all the class they can get and make it work.
True. Shift Hammer to center. Yeah. I mean, you'd have to give up on Sloan. You can't really play him anywhere else. I mean, how ruthless would the Roosters be? Would they give Edwards $1 million if they could? And I don't know if you move Teddy on or you change his position.
Yeah, if I had to give my top 3, I'd say Dragons most likely. Second most likely Bulldogs, because that's Serraldo connection. Third most likely Raiders. I think they would have the coin with Jack Whiten going, but I'm not sure it'd be his preferred location. Any others you want to add?
No, I think I was just surprised that actually quite a few teams are already very happy and set with their fullback and wouldn't actually be able to sign him. But a team that does actually need him is Penrith, and that's why I don't think Edwards will go anywhere. And I think he's perfectly happy at the club where he did win the most recent Clive Churchill medal as well.
Not only that, you look at Titans, Storm, Knights, Lockie Miller, Kalen Ponga, Meaney, Pappenhausen, Campbell, Brimson. These are teams that have not only one quality fullback, 2 quality fullbacks, so they certainly wouldn't be looking for a third and a Clive Churchill medalist. Let's close out Super Saturday. It was Storm v Dragons up there in Wollongong, and the Storm got up 38-28. My MVP was Eliesa Katoa. He had a double and possibly tackle of the year on Ben Hunt. Poor Benny did not see that shot coming at all, and it was a very important tackle because my play on this game was Jerome Hughes anytime try scorer, and he did not score. He set up 3, but he made us wait until minute 77 after a huge tackle by Katoa. Hughes picks it up with no one in front of him and goes and scores. He's now scored 6 out of 6 against the Dragons every single time he's played them. I tipped it at, I think, around $3 odds, so I really hope some people got on that. And if you did get on it, then I also apologize because I'm sure that you would have been thinking that, oh my God, this is a horrible tip by Clarkey. But we get there with 3 minutes to go. A much closer contest than we expected here. Dragons showing a ton of effort, and Storm just continue their up and down season where their form is just unstoppable one week. And then the next week, they're kind of in cruise control. They'll do enough to get the win, but not enough to put you to the sword like they did to the Raiders last week. It's certainly a more inconsistent Storm than what we're used to in 2023. But the fact they're still top 4 is really a testament to this club and just everyone that's involved with it. Winnie, I'd hate to be someone who tipped him to miss the top 4 in 2023. No, I'm only joking. And the season's still got time to go, so I can't early chap that one at all. But in all seriousness, they are an impressive side, getting the job done and winning in all different ways. How did you see this one?
Well, speaking of missing the top 4, they were in serious danger of missing the top 4 in this game. They were losing 18-4. And at that point, top 4 would have been wide open. Suddenly, Cronulla fans are thinking, we were dead and buried a month ago. We're box seat for top 4 now. I did say on Wednesday, my feeling about this game counts for nothing because I didn't take the Dragons 14.5 line, but I was right about them being frisky and being live underdogs in this one. As I said, leading by 14 points. However, they didn't even take a lead into the break. How many wingers scored a first half hat trick this round? Because Warbrick scores a hat trick all before the break, and in fact, it ends up 18 apiece. Then you think surely Melbourne will come out, switched on, and they did. They came out more focused second half. However, even then, with Melbourne getting in front, the Dragons still could have won. The Dragons scored a late try and then had a line break. I think, Billy Burns, the Storm couldn't tackle him, and he stormed onto an offload, and it was an open space, and then he just wanted to push one more pass, and Melbourne got the ball back there, and then there was only a couple of minutes to go. It was a 2-point game before Katoa rearranged Punt's ribs and the ball dropped to Hughes, and give you the credit. Doesn't matter how they score them, because plenty of players can find crazy ways to not score. So whenever you do score, you celebrate it. So you get that anytime try scorer by Hughes. And then the Melbourne actually tacks on a penalty as well. So they win the game by 10. They had no right to win the game by that much. Like, if you just see the final score, you don't realize how close it was and that the Dragons could have lost. Katoa, and we mentioned, the two guys involved with the try that sealed it were probably the Storm's two best on ground, Katoa and Hughes. Only negative for Melbourne would be the news that Pappy has had a setback with his knee, because otherwise he would have been in line to play this round. But because they've got control of the top 4 spot, and as long as they beat your Titans in Melbourne next round, which they'd be strongly favoured to do, they won't need to beat Brisbane in round 27, which means they don't need to rush Pappy back. However, ideally they would have loved to get a couple of games under his belt before the most important footy of the season. That could be an issue. However, you mentioned it before with backups. You got Meaney. At least you've got someone who does a strong job there.
And I'm going to be going down to that game at Amy Park there in Melbourne to watch my Titans play. I can tell you right now, Storm, you don't need to risk him. You guys will. Hate to give out an early tip, but we'll be tipping the Storm, unfortunately. Let's jump into Sunday afternoon footy. Knights and Rabbitohs. The Knights get up 29-10. My MVP was Greggy Marzu. He had 3 tries and 11 tackle breaks in this one. A real fiery encounter early on in this one. Both sides passionate. Both sides knew how important this one was in context of the ladder and their seasons. My play in this one was Dom Young, anytime try scorer with Alex Johnston, and over 48.5 points. And I think as far as what I expected to get the outcome of that multi, the Knights lived up to their end of the bargain. I probably expected a little bit more from the Rabbitohs in this one. And I just think that when it all goes back to the Rabbitohs, when we think about what I said early this year in the recap shows, when they get off their game and they are frustrated, they really go away from good football. And there was no excuses here. There was nothing wrong with the weather. There was a big crowd. It was a big occasion. The only thing that is different between this Rabbitohs side and a Rabbitohs side that we've seen absolutely dominate their opponents is this Rabbitohs side was frustrated. It wasn't working, and they didn't stick to the game plan. Instead of sticking to the game plan, it was elbows in the back of the head. It was cheap knees. It was wrestling. It was pushing. It was fighting. And I just think that if I can point out 2 things, Latrell Mitchell missing the goal from in front. Well, let's leave it there. Cody Walker couldn't get his game going at all. This guy is a superstar in the form 5/8 of the competition, and he did not fire a shot. And it's not that I like to pick on 2 players in particular. It's just that I know those 2 are so important to the Rabbitohs. And when they play well, the Rabbitohs can beat any side. Dare I say, the Panthers, Broncos, Warriors, and Storm. They're the only side to beat those 4 this year. And when they get it wrong like this, Winnie, it's a really, really hard watch because we know their potential. How did you see it, mate? Did you see it pretty much the same as that?
Yeah, visually disappointing. And, we expected Hastings was out. That was what got me over the line to play the Bunny. So that's fine. He was ruled out 24 hours before kickoff, and you got Totola and Sele in. And if there was something lacking from Souths in recent weeks, you could have said they're a bit thin on middles. You couldn't make that excuse from today. Perhaps you could make the excuse they've been doing a lot of traveling, but I wasn't buying into that because of all the disappointing performances and the fact that they needed to win this game. As we've said multiple times, the way the playoff picture stands, Do the Rabbitohs really want the season to come down to the final game against the Roosters? You know that that's a losable game. You want your season to hang on one match against actually a really strong opponent. That's your bitter rival. No team would want to have to sweat on the final game. But the Rabbitohs, again, we kind of said last week, they're just too cool. They have no sense of urgency. So if there's any team in the comp that probably thinks, let's just go into the bye and then let's beat Roosters round 27, we'll get in the finals, we'll see what happens, it probably is South Sydney, because I think, how else do you miss a kick from dead set in front? Like Latrell, I said a few things in my preview. I should say again, my best bet was Souths to lead the game at halftime. They were down 12-0. It was actually 3 tries. But like Latrell just letting a bomb bounce and like you said, miss it from in front. And I said that the superstars would cancel out, that, Ponga and Latrell cancel out. So that's just totally wrong. Ponga's got dead set flames coming off him. He's untouchable. Latrell, on his best day, can do similar things to what Ponga has done every single week in the last 7 weeks. Latrell is hit and miss. He also has plenty of games where he doesn't do nearly as much as that. So that was wrong to say. I mean, Ponga had a hand in how many tries today? Certainly the first 3 to get him out in front, although he missed all the conversions. Look, Souths were not without chances. I thought in yardage they were actually doing well, but their kicking game let them down. Like Ilias's kicks, some of them were just useless, giving away 7 tackle sets time and time again. Try and go for an early kick it out in the full. When the Rabbitohs actually would make a line break, multiple times they'd get it to Tane Milne. I'm just trying to understand, why is Tane Milne in the team? Like, just put a prop on the wing, because all you want is his yardage. They'll get the ball out to him, and he's actually got like the try line begging. He's too slow to ever get there, but you think, all right, if he builds up a head of steam, once in a while he'll run over somebody or through somebody and score a try. He never does. He loses the ball when he gets tackled as well. So the Rabbitohs just threw chance away. Not once, but twice in the first half, they got a repeat set on the Knights line and gave away a penalty for an obstruction in the first 2 tackles. And they didn't. It's not like they scored. They just ran behind their man and then just gave away the penalty. And next thing they're on the back foot. And having said all that, 12-0 down, when your opponent missed all their conversions, suddenly South score a couple of minutes into the second half. It was game on. But again, I refer to it. Missed the conversions, so it was only 12-4. And then missed more opportunities. I think Milne spilled a put down. It was an awesome effort by Bradman Best getting back, don't get me wrong. And then the Knights just took the game away from Rabbitohs with 2 tries off grubbers in behind the line. One of them may be controversial. It did hit Atkins, the ball, but it looked like a Knight was going to get to it first anyway. I don't know, because it's probably like enough doubt to say, sorry, once it hits the ref, it's kind of a dead ball when it ends up in a try. But again, it doesn't really matter because it was clear the Knights played with more desperation. So I thought that the Rabbitohs at the very least would match that want by Newcastle. And that's, just another aspect of this game that I got wrong. The Knights wanted it more. Kind of cruel that 2 weeks in a row I've lost on best bets against Newcastle. And I've been beating the drum of Newcastle all year and saying how good they are at home. I went against them at home 2 weeks in a row. And I paid dearly for that.
And for the Knights, I think this is the first time in 20 years they've won 7 straight in a row. I think I heard that on the broadcast. Very impressive. Looking at the Rabbitohs, I got a follower take this week, and I always like to throw a few bold ones in there, Winnie, for interaction purposes. But it was Whiten should play 7 next year for the Bunnies and drop Ilias to reserve grade. And I said agree. I know Whiten's not a halfback, but the Rabbitohs trying to play with the traditional halfback with Ilias like they used to with Reynolds really isn't working this year for one reason or another. And so I just think giving Jack Whiten that 7 jersey or Walker and just saying, hey, let's have 2 attacking 5'8s essentially.
Well, that's it. Walker could play 7 and Whiten could carry on at 6 as well. After today, I probably would agree with that take.
And certainly they lose a little bit in their kicking game doing that, but it gives them a different point of attack. And we know that when the Bunnies are the best, it really does flow off their attack. And so looking at the rest of the draw, they're going to have a bye next week, Winnie. The Roosters are going to play the Tigers at home at Allianz, where they've got a great record. In all honesty, they probably win that, right? And I think the Cowboys will beat the Dolphins at Suncorp. Where the Bunnies have a little bit of a buffer is they are positive on the for and against, right? So Roosters and Cowboys are all going to go to the same points. They're all going to be on the same points going into the final round. But the Cowboys have to go to Blue Bet. The only chance I give them there is if something happens where the Panthers have absolutely secured the minor premiership by that stage. And I don't know that that'll happen. Which means, yeah, it's literally going to come down to who wins out of the Bunnies and Roosters for who gets that 8th spot. It's going to be a finals game between the oldest rivalry in this competition before finals. And it's going to be the Friday 8 p.m. game. That is a blockbuster that everyone needs to circle in their calendars. Friday, the 1st of September. I already can't wait for that one. Let's jump into our final game. It was Raiders v Bulldogs. 36-24. The home side gets up. My MVP was Jordan Rapana, filling in at fullback with 3 try assists and a try scored. My play here was Bulldogs plus 4.5 halftime, which I was pleased we got. But then I said points under 45.5. I always point the wrong way. I didn't see this many points from this one winning. And I know that you were cautious in the preview pod, and you said you're not really a fan of the overs-unders market. Is that because of a lack of value, predictability, or something else that I should have considered?
Well, I think you mentioned overs in Bunnies Knights, and I said, it could be a final style game. I don't really like the overs in that style of game. I'm more happy to play overs if there's at least one team who isn't necessarily desperate. So you kind of had that being the case with the Bulldogs going to this one. They could kind of just throw it around and do whatever they want. And the issue with tipping this game was predicting the mindset and the desperation of the Doggies. They showed no want or intensity in Newcastle a week ago. So on one hand, does that mean they're going to bounce back, or does it just mean they're happy for the season to end? We actually got a fight. But before that, the man that we just mentioned, who's going to South Sydney next year, Jack Whiten, was ruled out 24 hours before the game, hamstring complaint. Now, the Raiders play Brisbane next week, and it's worth mentioning Brisbane were in the news because Reynolds will be out at least a week. He's got, I think, a calf strain. The Raiders, at least they get the 2 points here. And even if they can't beat Brisbane next week, we'll finish the year with the Sharks. However, you can have another look at the ladder, Clarkie, because Raiders have got the worst points differential of anyone. But are they safe now? They've got 34 points. Is that right?
They're on 32 points. So if Bunnies get the points from the bye next week and won again, Raiders need to win one more to absolutely lock it in. Like right now, it's probably like 70% they're going to be there, but they need to win one more to absolutely
They need to win one more. They need to win one more, but they're playing Brisbane next week. So if you deal them a loss there, then they're not a sure thing. They're going to play Sharks in the final round, I do believe. So
they have won 9 straight.
Okay, so I said that it's a battle in 3 teams for one spot, but maybe that's not really fair to say. Maybe you could probably say 4 teams for 2 spots then, because the Raiders play the Sharks in Cronulla in round 27. So, and because of that, our points differential. And once again, they can't win a game 13 plus. But as I said, it was level scores at the break. However, the Raiders just stuck to the task. So you give them credit because you're missing your best player, but you just were relentless in the game, whereas the Doggies kind of went away. And in fact, the Raiders built that lead as much as 18 points. It was 36-18. But like I said before, the Raiders just can't win a game by that 13 plus. You have to, if you want to back them, you have to go 1-12. So, of course, the Doggies put a bomb up and Max King scores late, and it's a 12-point margin. And I love the game of Rapana, but Tapane as well was massive. Had a beautiful assist to Papali'i late, and Horsburgh I thought was awesome as well.
And you know what? This is the Raiders' biggest win this season by 12 points. Previously, it was 10 over the Dragons. You referenced that they might struggle with that run home. I agree. I think they will struggle against Broncos. Where the Sharks gets interesting is they're in much worse form than the Sharks, you would say. But if they beat the Sharks, that will be 10 straight wins over them. Sharks haven't beat them since like 20-something. It's been a long, long time there. But for this one, I got my overs-unders wrong, as I did the game before. So something I've got to look at there and see if I can play that a little bit smarter for future picks. But I did think the Bulldogs shown some good fight at stages. But as Ryan points out there from YouTube, he says, Dogs look like they were trying to lose in the last 20. It's just a bit of a habit for this side at the moment. They don't really know how to chase effectively. They don't know how to hold on to leads. They just know how to fight, and that's not enough to win in the NRL. It just reminds me of the Tigers and Dragons in recent weeks. Like there's fight there, there's effort, but there's a lack of class experience, whatever you want to say there. And they're just not able to get the job done. It was a must-win by the Raiders. It was a solid bounce back given how poor they were in Melbourne. And I just think, we could criticize the Raiders here and say they should have won by more. They should have won 13 plus, for example. But coming off a 46-point loss, they then record their biggest margin win of the season. That has to count for something. And so I won't be too critical of them at all. Harry Potter says Spain v England equals draw. That's the Women's FIFA World Cup. I think that's kicking off after this, isn't it?
Yeah, in about an hour from now. So it was a very poor weekend, as we've just established. But just to refresh people's memories, in the Wednesday preview, we went Matilda's goal in an earlier minute than the last try in Sharks Cowboys. Sam Kerr with a worldie that at the time actually leveled the scores. I know that most people watching and listening to us saw that because I think it was the most watched TV event in Australian history, right? And at that stage, it was 1-1, but maybe Australia had played their final against France a few nights earlier. We missed a couple opportunities, key opportunity that England turned into a goal the other end a minute later. And England got through and won that game. So they're meeting Spain in the final. Harry Potter's got a draw and both teams to score. I was actually going to say for value, I saw 0-0 paying $7.50, and I'm just thinking the tightness of a final could easily be 0-0. That's after 90 minutes only that would pay. So I'll have a look at that for sure. Anyway, Sam Kerr's goal, we had to wait, but we waited about 63 minutes, but it put us in a strong position. We were favourites going into Cowboys Sharks. And then I was a bit worried. The game was tightening up. The Cowboys had no answers. They hadn't scored since like the 15th minute, but Nico did score the last try in like the 72nd, 73rd minute. So that was, one of the only positives of the weekend. But I do want to say to anyone who's kind of been trusting me and following my tips, it's great that same game multis are more popular than ever. I'm certainly proud of the record there, but I am really sorry about the best bet record. I'm wounded right now. It really hurts. I think the profit on, best bets and stuff was at 100 a stake was, over $500 just a couple of weeks ago. So we've really
$12.80. It's been as high as.
Well, $12.80 that would combine. That's combined though.
Yeah, combined has been our highest point.
Yeah, and now it's like combined is probably like 700 or 800. And that's an example stake if you're only staking 50 for multis. And I understand everyone stakes differently, and I don't say anybody should play my bets blindly and this is what you should do. I always say just back the ones you agree with. But then I've got to stand behind the record that my bets result in, and best bets, just pure mediocrity, and especially the last few weeks worse than that, missing out on winning weekends 2 or 3 in a row. So I am hurting. I am sorry. And I still appreciate everyone that tunes in. And of course, I stay committed to the task to give us a chance to finish this year strong. I hope everyone does have a good week. Obviously enjoy this Women's World Cup final. If you do catch that one later tonight, and we'll be back at it on Wednesday, and we'll see you then. Lego.